Ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurs and real estate magnates, I'm so thrilled to present you with this week's podcast. We always try to provide tremendous value, going deep on this topic or that, but today we have something special for you. Today, we interviewed Jamon Yerger. Jamon has an amazing story, but for now, I'll just say he spent 11 years building a successful entrepreneurial business in China. I've actually done a fair amount of business in China, and I can tell you that is no small feat. He's brought his great entrepreneurial learning to the land business, which he's graciously shared with us. Today, you're going to hear real nuggets on negotiating, market testing, calculated risk taking, and taking massive action. So strap in for another episode of the Land.MBA podcast. Hello, all you beautiful, energetic land investors. Welcome to another episode of the Land.MBA podcast. We are so happy you chose to spend some time with us today and join us. We've got a special treat for you, an interview with a wonderful land investor named Jamon Yerger, who's kind of blowing it out of the park. He's doing a great job, and we're going to hear all about where he comes from, how he got here, what's working, what's not working, and all the things we always want to hear about. Before we get there, though, please, if you can, if you're liking what you're hearing, you're coming back every week, please subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave comments. Tell us what you want to hear about, what you don't want to hear about, whatever it is. We want to hear from you. So feel free to put comments in there so we can be as responsive as we can to serving this community. So I am Howard Zonder. My partner in crime, David Van Steenkist, who, I'm thinking about one of these days. I'm just going to I'm going to either shave my head or I'm going to put the bald cap on. Maybe we'll put the cone heads on and we can do like a cone heads episode. That would be kind of fun.
That would be fun. It's funny. Ever since you started doing the intro, everything comes back to my bald head. I just, at least we're not starting talking about the weather.
Yeah, exactly. No more weather conversations. Boring. But the fact of the matter is your bald head never gets boring, Dave. So welcome, Jamon. So happy to have you on the show.
Thank
How
you.
you doing today?
I'm doing really good. The weather's nice outside. See, I just started with the weather. See what happened there? Weather is nice though. You can see David's on a mountain somewhere, which is really great. The internet connection is great up there. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, actually he lives his whole desk is in a field. Right.
Which is like a plane up kind of high. You can see all the mountains. That's very nice.
It's a nice office for sure.
I can appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jamon, we've had we had Lucas King on the show, and
that's hard to follow.
Well, and the thing is that I first talked to Lucas King because he talked to you, and first I had spoken to you, and then he joined, and then you actually were still involved in some other things. It was like another year or two, I think, before we actually reconnected, and you got into the business. So I think when you originally called me, you actually called me from China.
Yeah, I actually know exactly where. I was sitting in Shenzhen, and I rode my bike to Shekou, and I was sitting in Macaulay's, which is an Irish bar, and it's right next to the bay and everything. So I was just hanging out there, just doing research and things like that. And then I had the appointment with you or the phone call. So that's I actually remember exactly that day.
And I should say that Jamon speaks fluent Chinese, and he's spent years and years in China. I speak incredibly poor Chinese, of the little bit that I remember, and spent a little bit of time in China. But we always had that connection, and I can tell you that the fact that I have gray hair. When I was in China, there were no Irish bars. There was in Beijing. There was the Hard Rock Cafe. That was the only real place to get decent Western food in all of Beijing. So obviously things have moved along a little since then.
Yeah, I think I got there. Well, I arrived in 2004, and you were there in more the 90s. Is that correct?
I was there in 95. It was my first trip.
Yeah. So
Yes. So not too long
just
after
about
they opened
9 years.
up.
Yeah. So 9 years, about
That
nine
was the
years
old
before.
Beijing. Hmm.
hmm Was
Yeah.
it
And then
dirty back then too?
when I
Was it
was in
really dust?
Yeah,
Was it
I was
really
in
dusty?
Shanghai. And Shanghai is on the Pearl River, and the Bund is there, which was the place that all the Europeans had built. But when I was
Yep.
there, it's probably gorgeous now. It's probably all Gucci and Louis Vuitton and whatnot. But when I was there, it was all boarded up, and the only thing that I think that was open on the Bund was Kentucky Fried Chicken. And when you looked across the river at Pudong, which is now looks like New York City, I think there
Yeah.
were two tall buildings, and they were enshrouded in smog. You could barely see them. So that
Yeah,
was
they
my
still get
memory of.
those days. They still get those days, but yeah, it's that's why I moved down to Shenzhen. Is that actually when I first arrived to China, I went there to continue my Chinese language and everything in 2004. I landed in July 25th, 2004, and I went there to continue my Chinese and worked for different companies for a little bit, and then I worked for myself for the last 11 years, and then my kind of last years, I'm moving back to the US. I'm thinking like, what's my plan? I wanted to get into, something else. And I was hanging out with Luke and my other buddy Sean, who you don't know, but it was previously Luke's friend and partner. And so we were all discussing like, what's the next step? When we leave our businesses, what do we do next? And that's where we all had the discussion as we heard, things about you and other people that were talking about the land business. And we're like, what is the next step? Where do we go from here? So that's where we kind of just started this discussion about land. And then that's why I gave you the call and said, how do we start this? where do we go?
Yeah, and I don't know if that was actually my first land call from China, but it was one of the first ones. I've had a
Yeah.
few, which is really amazing.
Notable.
Yeah, really. And then like my the greatest Chinese land investor I ever worked with, turns out he was in Texas anyway. So, uh,
Ah.
but I got quite a few calls from China, which was really amazing. But before we get to your return to America and your
Mm.
movement onto land, we'd love to hear a little bit more about the backstory, and particularly about your entrepreneurial venture. So, what did you do? How did you hone your entrepreneurial skills? And then where did you end up that you finally said, okay, it's time to move to the next thing?
Mm. Well, I first arrived in Asia and I wanted to just continue my Chinese because I was already learning it, but I was really speaking at people, not really taking things in. So I decided to go over there and sold all my stuff and just said, I'm moving there. So I moved there, and my first step was I taught English for a year, found out that I wasn't a very good teacher or enjoyed it very much. So I got out of that. And kind of, I think my first step of the entrepreneurial journey, as it were, is that I actually just started working for free for these Westerners that were in Shako, which is like kind of an enclave at that time, more of a Western town in Shenzhen, China, right next to the Hong Kong border. And I kind of went to them and said, hey, look, I speak Chinese. I don't know anything about business, but I can speak, I can read, I can write. What can I do, to help you, to help me? And I met up with this one guy and Chris, and he was like, hey, we were hanging at the bar, and he's like, look, actually, I have, we're calling and we need to get plastic injection molds and aluminum molds and things like this for the oil companies that are out on the South China Sea. Why don't you call those guys up and start figuring out how to get molding prices? By the time, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. So just me calling up factories and just kind of learning the lingo, and I worked for free, and they would pass me some beers and a little bit of stipend money here and there. And that was kind of like my first steps. And then afterwards, I worked for a multinational called Ultralife. And that was based in New York City. They bought, or not New York City, on Albany, New York, and they started to bought a factory over here in China, and I ran the purchasing department. So I bought all the raw materials to make batteries. So that was kind of like my next step, was like negotiating with lithium batteries.
Okay.
Yeah, primary lithium batteries. So that was kind of like my next step into like real life negotiation, kind of learning about like cash flow and this kind of the ebbs and flows of business, traveling all over China with meeting with factory owners and negotiating contracts. And after I worked for them for about a year and a half, I kind of said to him, I'm doing all these contracts and everything. I think I should, I was looking into law school in Hong Kong and Chinese University of Hong Kong. And I said, how about I pay for it, but just give me half a day off 3 times a week for me to go travel into Hong Kong and do the degree. It benefits you because I'm already doing the contracts for you. And I'm just going to have a clear idea about what to do. And, they fell for it and they let me do it. So, nice. So I got to do that.
So you have a law degree?
I have an LLM, which is a master's degree in law. So I studied Chinese law.
Wow. I had no idea.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't practice. So, and with an LLM, more of just like, it's more of a scholarly pursuit. I didn't continue going to Hong Kong law or anything like that, or even US law.
That if you have a lot of experience negotiating contracts with Chinese vendors, that negotiating with sellers and buyers is probably a lot easier.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, to my relief, actually. So
wow.
So after the economic tsunami happened, I got laid off. I was the most expensive guilo in the whole system. Guilo meaning foreign person.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, it's a nice way. White devil.
White ghost, I believe.
Yeah, white ghost. Yeah, I was thinking more of like the Ace Ventura.
Yeah, right.
So let me guess. He said, white devil. You speak Watu too? Yeah. So yeah. So from that point, I got laid off, and I said, you know what? Let's start a business. So I did it with a partner of mine. But I went from lithium batteries into, drum roll, fashion design. So it's a big leap. We just decided. What's that?
Not a congruent business leap.
No, it really wasn't. It's definitely, definitely the different angle at that point. So we were really more into some design, supply chain. Simply the most simple way to put it, I think a lot of people is just like a sourcing business. So that was a lot of what we did. So basically, had a customer, they had things that they wanted that they weren't specialized at. We helped them in the design, the creation of raw materials, quality control, and logistics. So, and then we would, distribute all over the world. Most of our customers were in Europe and Australia, and any customers in the United States was more focused on the East Coast. So that went on for a while, but we decided that as I was growing a family, I have 2 kids now, and at that time they were about 2.5 years younger. So right now Kaya is 6 and Renee is 8. So we were just like, let's roll up the business. Sourcing and this type of business is really not, it's super, super detail oriented, which you mentioned to me when I come to you with problems, David and Howard, and I talk to me, you're like, well, Jamon, you really are really detailed oriented. And that really comes from my production management and the production manager of the fashion area. So because of all the different areas that you have to pay attention to get wrong, so that's where I think I have that type of, super focus on that. So when we got out of it, we started looking into land, and it just seemed like a simpler pattern in my mind. It seemed like this a better solution to a next career jump. So that's kind of where, that's like my beginning and end. That was like, I guess, my 5-minute quick story.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So wow, so sourcing. Did you work with a company called Asian Sources? Did you just?
I know Asian. Yeah, I know those guys. They have also a quality control team.
Yeah.
That we would use a couple times. Those would be the ones that, like, they're a little more far out, and we don't have anyone in that area, or we don't feel like doing it ourselves. So we'll send a third party to go do it. Yep.
Yeah, the founder of Asian Sources is an alumni of where I went to graduate school, and I actually interviewed to be his executive assistant coming out of graduate school. But
oh wow,
luck was on my side, and I didn't get the job. So I don't think I would have enjoyed it very much. Although I would have got to live on his yacht, but I don't think it would have been a very fun
nice
job. So I'm going to ask one more question, and I'll let Dave jump in a little bit. But what just are there any like key learnings or skills or techniques that you picked up in your entrepreneurial career in China that you found to be particularly useful in the land business?
Yeah, I think a couple things just off my top of my head is negotiation, which is like, okay, yeah, negotiation, but more importantly within that factor is kind of understanding what your limits are, high and low, and being able to confidently walk away. Some people might say like a poker face of some sort. In the negotiating world, you want to not seem too eager and be able to walk away from a deal, which I think that's a very Asian part of negotiation and stuff, is never give on about how much you really want it, and also be prepared to completely walk away, but also feel okay about that. No hard feelings, just is what it is. And it's business, as they say. And I think some of the other things I kind of learned in that is, let's see, yeah. I would also say just being able to delegate time, focusing on what I need to do and priorities, giving it to other people to delegate, now you do this. I'm still kind of early in my land career, so I haven't decided to delegate just anything yet. I really want to kind of hone in more about my understanding about it, but that also might be a deficiency on my part as well, that I haven't done it just yet, but I'm getting there.
What about risk taking?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think, you have to be comfortable with risk, calculated risk, not foolish. Okay. You're not just throwing money into the air. You are, particularly with land, especially this type of industry, you're not getting a lot of data to understand kind of a geography of what's happening in the area. So sometimes you need to take calculated risks on the information that you have and kind of do testing on items that you're not 100% clear on, and you can gather more information through that way. And I think that is why there is such an opportunity in this area, because it's not just laid out all there for you. You have to do a little bit of searching. You have to be able to take some risks, and you have to have confidence in yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I like that. Because you're right. I mean, you don't always have the data that you need, and you have to be able to calculate that risk. And sometimes taking that calculated risk means sometimes the only option is, look, dude, I need it for this price. That's what mitigates your risk, because you don't know what is out there, and being able to walk away is critical. I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely a critical skill for sure.
But I guess is it how Warren Buffett, I said it this, I don't know if I'm misquoting him, but he said, never lose money. And that's exactly how it works, in the land game, is that don't get emotional or be like, wow, I really like this land, or you start having the dream of what it could be, stay to data and numbers and say, I need it at $5,000. Not 8, I need it at 5, right. And make that adjustment. And because you want to sell that dream to the person who's looking at the land that you're going to sell it to, and they have the dream, they have the vision, they want to spend the money on what you found at a great price.
Exactly. And you've got to be able to never mind. I lost my train of thought. Out, please.
It's just that high altitude.
It is. Yeah. And the thoughts escape because I have no hair insulating.
That's right. Doesn't help.
Yeah, they do say that all the heat in your body pretty much exits through the smokestack. So
yeah,
you're right.
Exactly. So
sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say. So you decided land. And what was your process on how you decided to implement it? I know you knew Lucas and he had started it. He was one of my students and was pretty successful. So did that steer you towards us, or did you do some other exploring?
Well, I would like to say that we all came up with it at the same time, and I kicked myself in the butt that Lucas got there first. And I mean, I really do. It's because we ended up getting good, and I ended up working in Land.MBA quite. I opened the account and I got everything going, and I was kind of the trailblazer. And we were speaking by WeChat, which is like China's
WhatsApp.
Instagram. Yeah, WhatsApp. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the other green logo thingy. So we were talking. He's like, "Hey, so who are you going with?" And I said, I'm going with Land.MBA and this and that. And I was in the process of getting started. And before I did that, I was doing a lot of research. I was basically just pulling down information from the interwebs, and I was just putting everything in notes because I'm a freak, and just trying to make. I could do this on my own, and then I was just like, this is silly. Why would I do it this way? And so I ended up working with Land.MBA and doing it that way. But just as I was getting started, my wife got her visa for her green card, and how it works is they just say, hey, you've been approved, congratulations, you have to be here in a month. So we just had like a fire sale on our apartment, getting rid of everything, arranging life. I got back to the United States. I called Howard as I'm walking through New York City, and I had to get a job so I could get a mortgage, get a house and everything. I just said, hey man, I said, I don't have time for this. I just have to get into being in America and living life and getting a house and arranging the family. I just landed, and it's too much. And he said, you know what? Don't stop. Put it on pause. Just put it on pause, and that's what I'll do. Just put it on pause for a minute, and you can come back. And I said, great. So, I had to get through life for the next 7 months, and I did. Bought a house, got everything arranged, everything was stable. And then from that point, as I started again, it became back to the question, do I keep pulling things down from the internet and putting into my crazy sheet of what I do next, and A, then B, and find the mail, and then how do I send that out, and then I'm going to send it to this, and like all that type of stuff. And that's when I got on the phone with you, David, and we started talking about doing coaching. And I actually remember when that happened as well, is that when you gave me a call, I was hiking through one of my beloved hiking areas called High Rocks, and the reception was bad, but I ran to the top. I ran to the top of the cliffside so I could get reception and everything. So we basically just were trading notes. You're like, hey man, I hear what you're doing. It sounds like you know what you're doing, and great job. But he's like, you said, I think Luke did it with me, and he's been pretty advanced. And I said, I think you're right. So that's what we did, is that I just decided, turned to my wife, I said, I'm going to quit this job, and let's get back to opening a business. Everything's stable now. And with her blessing, she said, yeah, let's do it. I said, great. So I ended up doing coaching with you, David. And it worked very well. You just have to follow the steps and have confidence in yourself. Absolutely, that's the biggest part. You can't do it halfway. You really have to implement what you want to do. So it's really just about following the directions, as it were. But then secondly, which is also a big part of it, is having confidence to move forward.
Hey folks, people often talk about automating and outsourcing your land flipping business, but what does that really mean? Generic solutions leave it to you to figure out how to set up and maintain the automations. I've been running my land business on Land.MBA for over 3 years because it's a total solution and allows me to focus on being a great land investor. Land.MBA was built specifically for land investing by a land investor. And with many of the most successful people in the business using it for years, it's evolved into one of the most feature-rich solutions on the market. Some of the key benefits I get are being able to create and manage mail campaigns and neighbor letters. I'm able to automate tasks amongst my team, create contracts and deeds, and email, text, or mail them within a few clicks. I can automatically capture sales leads from any lead source, including Facebook Messenger. Then it automatically pushes those leads into my sales funnel so that I can manually follow up, but they also go into my automated drip campaign. And since LandSpeed's a total cloud-based solution, I can run my business from anywhere in the world with a phone, laptop, or tablet. So if you want to turn your hobby into a professional, scalable business, just go to landspeedtech.com/Dave to receive a $150 discount today.
That is such an important point. I just don't even think it can be overemphasized. I've worked with so many people. Some are true entrepreneurs and some aren't. And the thing that characterizes the true entrepreneur every time is this attitude that says, I may not know how to do it. It doesn't even matter if I know how to do it. I have absolute confidence that when the time comes and I need to figure it out, I can figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah, when you get to that bridge, as they say, or it's just abject stupidity. I'm not sure which one.
But I know who I can ask. I had a business coach tell me, forget about how. Just get out there and take massive action. And when you find a bump in a road, you got to have a mentor somewhere, whether it's a friend or a paid mentor or whatever. Don't worry about how, worry about who. Just worry about what's next and who, and keep rolling. But having that who gives you the confidence to go out and take massive actions. Because
absolutely,
I think fear is what holds so many people back. And when I look at in any business, any part of life, especially in this business, but I even look at my young daughter in her music career, and the people that she's around and whatnot, and her band that's taking off. These are kids that, they're teenagers and they're taking massive actions. They see their dream, and she and her partner, they're taking massive action. But I see the people in this business that are successful, they take big action. You take big action. When my business is stumbling, last year I had a little bit of a stumbling period. I was going through a divorce and stuff, so I had a lot of distractions. So I wasn't taking the action that I normally do, and it resulted in poor business results. And now, this year, man, I'm back on track and I'm killing it. But that's what it's about.
Yeah, completely agree. It's there's that in between. There's massive action, but that can also be then delineated down into something a little bit more specific. Massive action without any proof, massive action which is your calculated risks.
Right.
So and I think that's where you want to go. It's just like it's not just get out there and do it. Just you jump without the parachute. Start sewing it as you go down. That's definitely massive action in the way that you have enough information and say, I know there's a risk, but I have to move forward to find out what those risks are. And that might be financial, that might be time, just time that you have to use. It might be financial. It might be just, stress, but you have to get there to figure it out. But through calculated risk.
Yeah. You made a good point there with time, risking spending your time, right? Because sometimes, and that's what I find is an element of mentorship, is sometimes you just need affirmation that, yeah, you're doing it right. I know it takes a lot of time to do that. Like maybe it's a mailer, and you be like, God, this is taking me forever. Am I spending my time wisely? Sometimes you just need that attaboy. Yep. Keep going. You're doing it right.
Yeah. You and I've had conversations like that before, when I was doing pricing or, when I was doing my campaigns and stuff, and I'm just kind of like, am I doing this right?
Because you don't want to waste. Time's more valuable than money.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was a couple times you and I had discussions, and you're like, when we were talking about pricing, it's like, hey man, you're never going to get it 100% right. And when we were discussing like how do we price and how do we get that out to 5,000 different people, and different areas and through different counties, one discussion that we had was, you got to get it almost perfect, but don't be a perfectionist, and then you just have to let it fly, and also with kind of how land speed teaches you and how you taught me, David, was you really want to maybe not just let everything fly 100%. You don't send 5,000 pieces of mail out. That's wild. Unless you think you have it, unless you've already have it locked down, you're going to do a testing method. So you're going to send some stuff out and you're going to wait and you're going to get some results back. You're going to get phone calls. You want to pick up those phone calls and have conversations. So it's like when I moved into a new county with a non-disclosure state, my thing that I've been doing for the last 7 months is I just pick up the phone no matter what. I'm in the bathroom, I'm hanging out with my kids, anything. If I'm at the bar, I just step out, it's just like all the time. And when I've moved into these new counties, I just have these huge conversations with people. I had a conversation for 40 minutes with one guy. He was a rancher, and he just kind of gave me oodles of information about the area, where the water was, this and that. This subdivision was going to come in, it just never developed. There's that, but they put the gas line in, so that's a perk. Like all that type of stuff. Yeah. So and then the second part. Good stuff. Yeah. So, and then the second part was when my first campaign came around. My first campaign wasn't successful. My first 3 counties, because I was just a beginner. I didn't know what I would know, and and I called you out and I said, man, am I doing this right? And he goes, and you just like, hey man, you put the great effort in, you're learning a lot about the area. He's like, now it's time to move on. And that's what I did. And I moved on to the next one, boom. And as that one started moving, actually a couple from the previous campaign actually came in and started paying money. It really can just be a timing thing. And it's not always you, it's just, yeah. You have to sometimes as you got to give yourself the authority to move forward.
Yeah. I've had deals, where you thought, well, that campaign in that county sucked. All right, I'll come back to that in a few months, reevaluate and try to reprice it, or maybe I won't. But then you get one deal that comes in, 6 months later that was a freaking home run, and that was made it all worth it.
Absolutely. You go, man, this campaign was a failure. And then you just get that one big deal. You're like, you totally redeemed yourself. Exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
I remember the first property I ever bought was about a quarter of an acre in southeastern Utah in no man's land. It was, and I paid too much for it. It was the dumbest thing ever, but I didn't know what I was doing. I bought it. It took me 7 months to sell it. And I sold it to this woman, made about an 86% ROI on it, which in any other industry is like a jump for joy situation. I was all depressed because I only got 86% on it. But the best part of the story is about 2 years later, she called me back and said, hey, do you have any other properties around there? I'm like, what? So, I mean, action creates opportunities out of nothing. It's just amazing. You get your name out there. It just, things come up that you would have never come up with on your own. But when you put yourself out there, magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. You're creating luck.
Exactly right. It's a good way to put it. You're creating luck, right? The harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
Yeah.
I had a deal come in a couple of weeks ago that was from a 3-year-old mailer. And it was, it needs to go through quiet title and all that stuff. But, it's when we saw that the title was jacked up. We're like, yeah, we'll give you $2,500 for it. But cleaned up, it's worth about $7,500. I'll have to spend about $5 or $6 grand on attorney work. But great deal. But that came off a 3-year-old mailer that was a skunker. That was the only deal that ever came in off that mailer.
Yeah.
So
wow. So we've actually had about 3 different ideas converge all at once in this conversation. So we talked about pricing, we talked about detail oriented, we talked about perfectionism. All these things kind of come together. And I know you're a very detail oriented guy, probably because of your sourcing career in China, or maybe it's just who you are. And we've had lots and lots of conversations about data and trying to get it right and making sure it's right because you
Yeah.
want to pull the trigger, but you're something in your belly's saying don't pull the trigger. And I guess my question is, now that you've got all this experience under your belt, what's the right level of detail orientation? And does that level of detail orientation do you think it's helped you in getting more deals, or has it hurt you and slowing you down?
I think in the beginning, my first 6 months, I think that detail orientated type of thought process was a double-edged sword. So one, I wanted to learn all about the business and understand it, and figure it from top to tail and how I can manipulate it and stuff like that. But then two, when you're getting into more of the, analytical part of it, and data isn't presented to you in a way that you think you can use it well, that's where the other side of the sword comes in. And where you need to understand that some of it isn't relevant. It's not relevant to take into account. But now, as I've been working on this, I think I understand now where I need to focus my kind of personality, or what I've previously learned. So I'm taking my previously learned entrepreneurialistic, my business model and how I ran another company into this one. Now I'm learning that now this is not that business. This is this business. And now I can section it off into different areas where this needs to be detailed oriented to a certain amount. And then I have to say, pricing, we just discussed, pricing has to be good. You can focus down on certain areas, and then you're going to say, we don't want to overshoot, but here we are. This is where we're at. And that's where you can focus your time and money and in that area. But then over here, maybe you don't need to be so detail oriented. You can delegate and let that fly and let the process roll. And when the process rolls, it can feed you more information back. So, I think if I would have continued as I did in the beginning, just pulling my previous business experience on, and not changing to what this business is, I think it would have been a big detriment to me. So I think it's a bit of, it's a dance, it's more of an art. It's not chemistry, or rather, or sorry, they say science, it's science up to a point, and then you have to kind of be creative after that point. Yeah. And everything just can't be data, because if it was, then everyone else would be doing it. Exactly. That's the thing. Everyone can just pull down a sheet and they go, this is the price, and then they sell it, and everyone knows. And so would the sell, so would your prospective buyer in the future. So this is where, it's really just kind of a dance. It's in between, and you have to know when to move in between, back and forth.
The art is what makes you money. When you find an area and you learn the art, that's where you can create a honey hole. You can create, better ways of doing things,
Yes.
It's the art that makes you money. And even the art part of it, that even if you have to get a property where you got to clean up the title, because so many people, when I was a beginner, even first maybe couple of years, I passed on anything that had a junk on the title, but I don't anymore, because there's gold in them our hills.
Yeah. Well, that's just the thing. You have a list, you have, which is say a standard operating procedure, or, you go, this is how I run the business. But you also, because that standard operating procedure also then gives you freedom to then move in and out of it when you see fit, because you can always go back and look at that and say, this is how I run it. But as you said, with the titles, there's something wrong with the title. you kind of go up to that point. We go, well, the title doesn't work. We throw it in the trash. You go, well, wait a minute. Is there a branch here that we can go off here? Can we be creative in this point? Can we just create another line that goes off of here? Is it worth it to do?
Yeah.
And, actually having direction gives you freedom. Having a schedule gives you freedom to be creative, because you have a backbone, a backbone to run off of. And then when it gets scary, you can get back into that and be like, where did I go? But then you can move off of there. And that's the creative part.
Well, I think exactly what you're saying, that you have a foundational operating lane.
Yes.
You got your lane, and you don't want to get too far out of that lane, but it gives you a stability point to keep you from getting shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge issue. When I was doing houses, I used to get a lot of shiny object syndrome because, there's a lot more dynamics with houses too. But with land, it's easy to say, well, yeah, I want to go do tiny homes and I want to,
Yeah.
And there might be a time and a place for those branches, for those additional streams of income. But it's really important to stay disciplined and make sure that you're taking care of your lane and it's doing really well. And then you can, like you said, you can start to take a look at some stuff that's outside the box, get out of your lane a little bit. But as long as it doesn't detract from your core business model.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jamon, you're about, a little over a year into this now?
I would say it will be 2 years come August, I think.
Okay. So a year and a half.
So are you just, plowing the path that you've had all along, or are you now like getting into another phase, shifting strategy a little bit? Where are you going from here?
Well, my first year was just to understand how the business works and, see what my money could do for me and kind of develop that path. And basically, I kind of was just picking low fruit. I was going into areas that were competitive, that sales were happening and things like that, where I could get in at lower prices. I say lower, more like, 5,000 to 20,000, somewhere around there. And I'm just kind of playing in that field. And, now this year I've committed to myself to kind of keep that stream open. But now I'm kind of moving to a little bit higher priced items and kind of doubling down on the quantity in the first stream, which is kind of that 5 to 20 some area, could be 25. But, when I say higher, I'm looking more up into like the 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. That's kind of like my new, it's my new kind of egg to crack that I'm looking to get into. So basically this year, I'm doubling down on more properties. I'm sending more mail, and that doesn't necessarily mean double the work. Since I have kind of a system down and I've gone through the year, now I have a system about how I want to do things. It's just when you're sending more mail, you're now sending more calculated and better, plotted areas. So like I said, you're not just doing a blanket out there to any county and be like, come on, I want all your land. You're kind of focusing down now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's spray and pay. Yeah.
That's a fantastic point. Let's just dig into that one for a minute, because I think that's exactly what people do when they first get started. They pick a county and they like, all right, I'm saying to all the landowners in the county, and I'll see what I get back, and I'll just evaluate them one at a time, and and I'll take whatever when you first start, I'll take whatever I can get, and then when you get a little bit more, then it's like I'll take whatever looks good. And now you're being much more thoughtful in how you're targeting opportunities.
Yes, I would say that's correct, because I only have so much time. Yep. So now I'm deciding to use my capital. Now that I'm deciding to double, I'm going to use my capital a little bit smarter.
Yeah, good stuff. I would ask you much more detailed questions about that, but you probably don't want to give away all your secret sauce.
I mean, I just think, I don't really think there's too much of secret sauce, because everyone has their own secret sauce, for the area that they work and how they run their business and what's successful for them. I really think it's, I just keep pushing forward. This is what it is. I think that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, right. Never stop action.
Yeah. I mean, people want a magic trick. And there is none. People go and they look at people and they go, oh, well, geez, they got lucky. Well, they've been lucky for 15 years. They've been working towards that opportunity. So, it's when things arise is because of the things that happened before. Yes, there is true luck, but it doesn't happen very often, for the things that you want. You're like, wow, I'm lucky. I found a piece of gum on the ground. That is luck. But it's not
like
something
you
that you
said
wanted
earlier, you create your luck.
It's only slightly chewed.
You said here, you create your luck, and sending out all that mail, touching all those people, you're gonna create your luck. I can tell you, I've got 2 properties right now. One I just bought, and one's in quiet title, that have amazing margins on them. Like 2 of the best deals I've ever done by far, and they all came in together for this year. I could definitely call those lucky, because I made mistakes. Actually, those 2 properties shouldn't have even been on my mailers, to tell you the truth. But you get out there sending enough mail, you're going to make some, fall in a bucket of poop sometimes and come out smelling like a rose.
Absolutely.
Of those happy accidents.
Yeah. So that's the secret sauce. I think the secret sauce is perseverance.
Exactly.
And I've been lucky to do so. I get to stay at home. I get to work because I know, and I get to work at home, or I'll go to a cafe sometimes to get out of the house. But it's been a huge benefit to be able just to not travel anywhere. I get up, I have a coffee, I got my space, here. It's not much, but it's mine. And, and I get to see the kids when they come home. My son's in kindergarten, so he's a half day. So he gets to come home. I'll go pick him up sometimes. It's just a much freer schedule for me to run that life. But I'm also disciplined enough to also make sure that I'm back at work too. It's not all, hey kids, how you doing? I'm going to hang out. Oh, now we're going to go outside and play baseball. And then, it's like, wait, I got to work here. So I got to work at some time too. But I'm able to balance that out, which has been great.
But how nice is that though? Your kids get to see their dad 3 meals a day. Well, 2 if they're in school, but that's friggin' awesome. I mean, how many kids get that in our society? Not very many.
I'm not sure many. But in the beginning, like you said, I think Howard, you mentioned earlier, not everyone's an entrepreneur.
Right.
So, it takes time, but with discipline, and also someone guiding you, you could be molded, you could, through taking action and but also following direction, and then also having a confidant to talk to. That trifecta will bring results. For some people a little bit faster, for others they might have to work a little bit harder, but it's all there for the taking if you can have the wherewithal to push through.
Yeah. So we're coming up on our time crunch here, but that brings up one more thought here, just to dovetail on what we're talking about, to push through it. It comes back to mindset. And we've talked before, we've done a podcast on the being entrepreneurial versus actually being a true entrepreneur. And to us, the biggest deal there is mindset. And I think it comes down to when things get tough also, how do you keep that mindset to push through? Is it because do you have a big why? Is it those kids, and you set big goals for that why? I mean, we got to have something that we're striving for that's bigger than just money. If it's just about making money, when it gets tough, we're going to crumble.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's your why, Jamon? If you want to share it, might be, if it's not too personal. put you on the spot.
I would say, people always say, oh, well, it's for my kids and everything. I'm going to break that mold. They're going to be just fine.
Selfish bastard.
Well, this is where I'm breaking the mold, and it does move into my children, is that making yourself happy and creating an atmosphere around you, which is a good place to be, trickles down. It moves into other parts of life. So, why am I doing the land business? I do see an opportunity to make a good amount of money. But two, I enjoy also coming from where owning my previous business in China. I was tied to my office and I was tied to problems. Even when I didn't go to my office and my team was still running it, I had 15 people in Shenzhen. There was problems and I had to be the one to make the call, and there were so many problems because we had so many products and, so many SKUs. So, there were so many areas for opportunity for things to go wrong. And so one of it is this is to make money. But the second part of it is that this business can be quite simplistic in one way, where I can sit at home and I can do these things, and the problems that come up can be kind of more narrow than, let's just say like a product business, creating a fashion line, or, you're going to create the newest widget that's going to take the world by surprise, or, anything like that, or anything that requires a lot of cooperation with multiple groups of people and management and everything. So me being at home is great, and managing my own time. So I value my time. I value that I can go for a bike ride anytime I want. If in the springtime, I get on my board and I go, paddle board, and I just go up to the lake, which is like 5 minutes from me. And I could do that any time. So it's really, those things. It's like my happiness EQ is high. And that is why I do it. I prefer to be able to control my life. That's my why. I get to go have a coffee at my favorite coffee place, and they have this great muffin. They make their own biscuits, or they make their own muffins, and they have their own sauces. Like, that's the stuff. Going there in the morning and you're like, I love that. Instead of where I used to be going to New York City when I first arrived back, 2 hours on the train, walk to the office for 20 minutes, down to the Flatiron District, drudge, get out, yeah, talk with everyone, just get it done. And then 2 hours back, I was spending 20 hours on a good day with no traffic and trains not being late, 20 hours of travel a week. That's just a loss of life.
It is totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So, and my children. Yes. There we go.
There you go. Well, awesome. Howard, if you have anything left.
No, I'm just we're just gonna edit that whole part out, and that is the Land.MBA commercial right there. I love it. No, Jamon, that was awesome. So many nuggets in there. I hope our listeners had a pencil and paper, because they're gonna want to go back and listen to this one a couple times. Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much. It's been a joy working with you these last couple of years, and hopefully we'll continue doing it for many years to come. Keep up the good work, lots of success, and we will see you and our wonderful audience on the next Land.MBA podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.